Hey, good morning, everybody. Happy Monday to you. I pray that you had a great weekend. And now here we are at the beginning of a brand new work week with the beginning of a brand new day. And that means a brand new edition of 5 Minutes with Phil. And thank you so much for joining me here today. We want to share God's Word with you again and share this really great verse with you here today. I stumbled upon this verse today as I was taping this, and I'm really excited to share it with you because I think there's, even though it's one verse, I think, as I like to say, it really packs a big punch. And so I'm going to invite you to join me in reading this together. The psalmist says this in Psalm 94, verse 19. We are in Psalm 94, verse 19. It says, "When anxiety was great within me, your consolation brought me joy." When anxiety was great within me, your consolation brought me great joy. Brought me joy. You know what's interesting? The first word of this verse was when. When anxiety was great within me. It did not say if anxiety is great within me, but the psalmist is looking at his life and he says, when anxiety comes, God, it's your consolation that brings me great joy. We are going to go through some times of anxiety. And that doesn't mean you're a bad Christian because of it. That doesn't mean you've sinned. That doesn't mean you've blown it. So sometimes we're gonna go through some difficulties. And I'm so glad that the first word is when and not if. So this is a reality check for all of us. When anxiety comes, okay? So let's get it out there, okay? We're going to face anxiety. We're going to face difficulty. How do we deal with it? And that's when this rest of the verse comes into play. The psalmist says, your consolation brings me or brought me joy. Now, what's consolation? Okay? The root word in there is the word console. Okay, if I'm consoling somebody, then I'm trying to comfort them in the midst of heartbreak or difficulty or sadness or whatever that emotion is that's really bringing me down and kind of derailing my life a bit. That's when I need consoled. And so God's consolation brings us joy. What is that verse saying? I think what that says is that we give God a chance to bring our joy back. He, for lack of a better word, he wants to hug us and he wants to hold us in his arms and he wants to remind us that he's been there for us before. And honestly, I think I can seriously say this. Every single follower of Jesus Christ that's watching this right now, you could look back on a time where God's been so faithful to you. He's been good to you. He healed you. He brought you out of a difficult time. He provided for you. He gave you a job that you didn't think you were going to be able to get. I mean, he's been good to you. He's been really faithful. And you know what that is? That's God's consolation. That's our being reminded of how good he is. And it's in those times that we face anxiety. I think our default response in our flesh is to try to kind of shut down and to kind of back off and kind of just say, well, Lord, I think we're going to take a break here because I'm a little distressed. And just the opposite is true. This is when we need to be aware of God's presence. This is when we need to remind ourselves of the faithfulness of God. This is when we need to remind ourselves that God's been good to me. He's been good to me. He has supplied things for me before. He's come through for me before. And that is his consolation. And it's his consolation that will bring our joy back. And maybe the greatest thing that God can do for you is to return your joy back to you. And that would be my prayer today, that if you're in the middle of a bunch of anxiety, then would you allow God's consolation, just the reminder of his faithfulness, let that bring you your joy back. And you can have joy. Even in the midst of stress, you can have your joy back. All right? That's all the time I got. Thanks for joining me. We love you. Have a great day. Have an awesome week. And we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.